Alright, so this video is going to sound for sure very show-offy. I'm going to sound like a douchebag for saying this, but this is how I grew my net worth by over $100,000 in 1 year at the age of 27 with a low salary. So I'm just going to dive straight into it. It just sounds so unreal to say this, but currently my net worth is about $402,000 as of the time of this recording. There's like no way in the world that I would have thought I would have had this much if you had told me this back in college. So before I begin, here's a little brief background about myself. I graduated undergraduate college at the age of 22 with a bachelor's in chemistry, moved on to graduate school and graduated from that at the age of 23 with a master's in environmental engineering. So that's 4 years from back then, and that's a big difference. Even after graduating and accumulating student loans and being down negative $30,000 from student debt from the start of graduating with my master's to now being up over $400,000 in cash or assets, like that's just insane to me. Honestly, I thought I would just slowly climb the corporate ladder, like what most people would do, just working from the bottom, getting years of experience, and then jumping around from job to job that pays more, or just slowly growing internally within that company until my late 20s or maybe even early 30s. Then eventually I would stabilize once I reached my mid 30s or maybe my 40s. And usually you'd expect people around that age to be like middle class, so long as they're good like financially and just save and work hard, get promoted. But wow, like being able to achieve this before the age of 30 is just mind-blowing. And I still have like 3 years to spare before 30. Yeah, for sure now I'm starting to sound like a douchebag. My ego is like way up there now. So let's get back down to earth. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I did it. There is no secret to it, and I'm sure you've heard it many times before. Also, full disclaimer, this is just based off of my own experience. And I also want to remind people that, what I experienced will for sure definitely be different from yours. And there are many other different outcomes that will affect the results. Factors can include things like your location, your starting salary, what job you have, some random uncontrollable event like the pandemic, or maybe some medical bills, an accident, the stock market crashing, or the housing market crashing. There's so many unforeseeable things. So here's how I did it. Number one, first is that I have a job. Obviously, if you want to make money, you have to work for it, and the best way and the most easiest way to do that is to have a job, have an income. Now, at my job as an environmental engineer, straight up I make $85,000 a year. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, this is clickbait. $85,000 a year, like how is that even low? What do you mean low salary? I'd die for $85,000 compared to what I'm currently making. But remember though that this amount depends on like where you're living. So if you're living in like a low income state where the median household is like $60,000, then yes, $85,000 is well above the average. But I live in California. The cost of living here is very high. $85,000 a year will get me by, but factor all these things like taxes, rent, food, utilities. After all of that's gone, you barely get anything really. Also, I'm in the engineering field, so comparatively, $85,000 isn't that high if you're like a software engineer making like $100,000, right off the bat. Environmental engineers just go like unnoticed and are practically unheard of in the engineering field. Next is that I live well below my means and I just plan ahead. Now, what does that mean? It means that I don't really buy expensive things. I don't show off or buy unnecessary stuff. So for example, food is food. I don't need to be eating like steakhouse every single day to fill me up. I know basic foods can just like satisfy me. Why eat a $50 meal when you can be just as full and get like the full nutritional value for a meal that costs like $10? Or maybe why always keep up with the latest technology? Why even buy like a new iPhone when my current iPhone still works perfectly fine? I don't need to have something brand new every single time a new update comes out when I currently have one that still works. Just save the money and time for not having to buy that. Third, now this will like pretty much blow your socks off. I bought a house back in 2020. Yeah, so this is pretty much what changed the whole playing field. It's because I planned for it and I saved for years for this goal, which pretty much ties back to the last point, just planning ahead. Originally, I just had a goal to buy a house because I wanted to lock in my rent and keep it fixed for however much amount of rent per month for the rest of my life. Everyone needs a place to stay, and I knew that the housing market, like no matter what stage in life you're in, you need to live in a house. And typically it does always go up. It's just nice to have something like tangible that you can physically touch and physically own. And you don't want to be shocked later in the years when your landlord happens to increase the price dramatically. So with the whole housing market boom basically between 2020 and 2021, the equity of my house basically skyrocketed $100,000 with me doing nothing really. So basically I just bought in at the right time before it just took off. And so that event itself, just waiting 1 whole year, was enough to increase my net worth by 100,000 in a year. And again, I didn't have anything to control. I didn't really do anything about it. All I did was save up for the down payment. And it just so happened to be that I luckily bought the dip basically before, again, it skyrocketed. And lastly, I invest into the stock market. So I graduated with a degree in chemistry and engineering. I'm a chemist, I'm an engineer. I'm not a financial analyst. I am not a financial advisor. I didn't graduate with any business degree or any business background. But that doesn't mean that you have to be business oriented to learn how to invest your money. You know, there are tons of free YouTube videos out there where you can just basically learn everything about the stock market. They teach you very basic concepts and it's not really so hard to understand. Literally, I have like people younger than me teaching me the concepts. So don't feel embarrassed if you feel that you're being taught by someone who's younger than you. It just means that you're not proficient into that field, and that's perfectly fine. So I just learned for free online through YouTube or through Google. Again, you don't have to pay for any of this. If you want, you can buy a course and like narrow it down, but I'd say just don't do that. Save the money. Just take the time to learn all the ins and outs. Learn what is good and what is bad, because everything is free online. And in 2021, the stock market went up also, so that just increased my net worth as well. Again, I didn't have to do that much research besides, just learn that prior knowledge that I got for free online and just let it roll. I just held on to it. And that's really all you have to do. You just have to wait. So long as you've done your due diligence and you did your research and you bought the right things, and boom, there you have it. Another $100,000 to your name underneath your belt. And so those are the 4 things that I did. Now again, you don't have to be financially savvy, you don't have to own a business or anything to increase your net worth. You don't have to do anything super risky in order to grow your money. The love of money is bad, but having money is not a bad thing. And I'm sure everyone who's watching would love to have more money. I am not a douchebag for increasing my net worth, and you're not a douchebag or a selfish person for wanting to have more money to better yourself or better the world. It's better for me to learn these things now since I'm still young, and it's also better for you to start earlier. That way you can have time to adjust any errors if you've made any mistakes, and just so you can have more money or more time for your money to grow. Also, I want to try something new. I want to give a shout out to some people who are really supportive of my channel. They leave really friendly comments that I like to read. Shout out to Rosie. Hi, if you're watching this right now. Thanks for always watching and leaving friendly comments. It really inspires me to keep pushing these videos out. So that's all I have for the video. If you liked it, go ahead, share, subscribe. Goodbye.